This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to this public outreach session for Subregion 2 of the Montezut Metropolitan Planning Organization regarding the Montezut Regional Transportation Plan. My name is Brad Harris. I'm the Transportation Project Manager here at the MRPC. And a couple of items before we begin. This meeting is being recorded and we will be posting it to the RTP website that we are in the midst of developing so that you can go back and review it at a later date if you so choose. Also, for questions or comments, you can either type them into the chat box, and we can get them that way. Or I believe there's a raise your hand icon available at the bottom of the screen that you can use, or just wave at the camera. We'll find you, and we'll get your comments. So once again, my name is Brad Harris with the MRPC, and I'll let the other staff members introduce themselves.
I'm George Snow, MRPC.
Jerry Bean, MRPC.
Brian Doherty, MRPC.
Okay, our contact information will be available at the end of the slides, and feel free to give us a call or an email with any questions you may have. So to begin, we are developing this regional transportation plan. We have a target endorsement date of around mid-June of next year. Prior to that, there'll be a 21 public review and comment period. So everyone will have a chance to review the plan document at that time. One other housekeeping item, if you are asking a question or talking, please identify yourself just so we know who we are dealing with and talking to. Okay, Brian, next slide. Okay, just some brief introductory information about the MRPC. We cover 3 cities, Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, and 19 towns in the Planning Development District of Devens. Obviously, we're located in northern Worcester County and Middlesex County. The total region population, according to the 2020 census, is 242,671, and we cover about 685 square miles. All right, and it's good to note that the MRPC, we're not a federal, state, or county agency, but rather a regional agency created by and responsible to its member communities. That was through legislation passed by Boston, the state legislature, a number of years ago. Currently, we have 11 staff members in 3 departments: planning and development, geographic information systems, and transportation and transit planning. This next slide is just a representation of our region and where we're located. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the community you live in and where that's located. So the next question, who's involved in transportation planning? Well, obviously there is us, the Montezut Regional Planning Commission. There's the Montezut Joint Transportation Committee, which is a subcommittee of the MRPC, and it's an advisory group that reviews transportation information and documents and so forth. And they provide feedback and recommendations to both the MRPC and the Montezut Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the 3rd member of this group. The MPO, they're responsible for the formal development and endorsement of several federally required actions and documents. They include the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, the Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP, and the Regional Transportation Plan. And they cover the same region as the MRPC. The MRPC works as a staff to the MPO, and we have a transportation planning contract with Mass DOT. It involves federal funds, and we, as I said, we are staff to the MPO. The MPO consists of 10 signatories. You can see them listed here. There is the Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of Mass DOT, the Highway Administrator for Mass DOT, the Chairman of the Planning Commission, the Chairman of the Montezut Regional Transit Authority, the Mayors of Fitchburg, Gardner, and Leominster, and a subregion for 4 separate sub-regions comprised of the rural communities. We develop these subregions based on population, and they're all roughly run the same population size. I forget if that's rough. It's probably within 2,000 to 3,000 of each other. So that's how these subregions were developed. Next slide. So what is the plan and what does it do? Well, it helps provide guidance to local and state officials in deciding how to spend federal and state transportation funds. It is not a wish list, but a plan with projects that have a reasonable chance of being funded, that have gone through some due diligence by the communities to determine what needs to be done to improve their transportation network. So and one of the main aspects of the RTP is it must be fiscally constrained. So that's why it's not a wish list with just unrestrained amounts of funds identified. So that's why we have to go through the process of looking for projects that make sense and fit into the RTP. And the plan matters, as it says here, it outlines transportation priority needs for the region and for community. In the second bullet item is probably the most important. If a community wants to receive federal funds for a project, it must fit into the policy goals of the regional transportation plan. And that's where the towns have made done some due diligence and looking at what needs to be done and what they'd like to see improved. And they work with us to make sure it's covered in the RTP, either specifically as a project, a named project or intersection, let's say, or it fits within one of our goals of improving safety throughout the region by improving substandard intersections and high crash locations. So that's how we work these projects into the RTP. Next slide. The plan covers all modes of transportation, from roads and rail to trails, transit, freight movement, safety, congestion. And it also has an air quality requirement and a fiscal constraint requirement. And those we work with Mass DOT to determine anticipated funding amounts for the life of the plan and the air quality goals we need to obtain. And we analyze the different projects in it to make sure we fit all the requirements and the goals being put together by Mass DOT. Currently, our current RTP, the 2020 RTP, is available online so that you can take a look. Brian is going to give me access to the share. And I will just quickly find trying to find the tab. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. If you come to the MRPC website at mrpc.org, this is the front page of the website, and you scroll down a bit. On the left-hand side, you'll see under the upcoming meetings list, this banner. It's the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan. We will have a link here and a banner there for this RTP. We can come later in the future. But if you want to take a look at the 2020, you just click on this banner. It'll bring you to this site, and there are the individual chapters available for download and reading. Or you can also go to what's known as a map journal. If you click on that, you can review the RTP online and its various graphics. You could jump directly to a section of the RTP you want to see, like a summary, all the way down to regional profile, demographics, and so forth. But as you scroll through this, the image on the right-hand side will change as you move your way through the RTP. So that's just a quick way to jump around and take a look at different sections of the document. And as I said, we'll be putting the same type of stuff together for this RTP, and there'll be a banner notice right here under the current one. Now I will give this back to Brian. Back to the slideshow. Okay. All right. So that's it on what the RTP covers. Now, why we're here today. Public outreach and feedback is an important part of the RTP development. So we want to hear from our member communities on what are priorities and what issues they have in their towns. We have put together a survey. It's available online through this link as well as the QR code. We have you can also access it through the MRPC website on the front page. Is one of the news announcements is a little story about the RTP survey that you can click and have access to directly. We ask that if anyone, please spread the news about this survey. hand it out to anybody you think might be interested or have an interest in transportation. There are paper copies available for download. We anticipate having some available in senior centers and libraries in the very near future. And we're asking too, if you have an idea of what might be a good location to put some surveys to get some feedback, let us know. We can print some copies up and put a Dropbox out so that we can get as many responses as possible. So you can let us know through either an email or phone call later on, and we will work to get something out there. So again, the main point of this one is just pass it along to anybody you think might have an interest in. Let them know about the survey and that we're interested in getting their feedback. With that, we'll go on to the next part of this, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian. We're going to go through basically a number of questions that we are asking the communities. And we're asking you to think about them. I know it's a lot to ask for responses right now, but that's not necessary. You can respond at any time, especially through the survey or, again, through emails or phone calls. But these are questions we want you to think about regarding your community and the transportation network so that we can get positive feedback and make some positive announcements and positive planning scenarios within the RTP that would reflect the needs of the region. So with that, I'll let Brian go through these next few questions.
Thanks, Brad. And as Brad mentioned, don't feel obligated to answer these questions right now. Certainly, it'd be nice to have conversation with the group here today. But if something pops into your head later, we're developing this document over the next several months. So always feel free to reach out to us or fill out the survey online, or contact us directly, what have you. The first question here is, what are the main transportation-related challenges in your community? So I know like a number of people here are from town hall, so to say. They may work for the town, or I don't know how many just private citizens we have, but what are some of the transportation challenges you think of when it first pops into your mind?
And Brian, show up the next slide about some of the different issues we've sort of highlighted.
Sure, these are examples. This is pulled directly from the survey. And some of the examples that we give here, and in the survey question, we ask the taker to actually rank the importance of these challenges. So we're talking about things like road maintenance and infrastructure. That could be one of the most common ones that people think of, but also things like transit options that may be available to you or not available for that matter. Congestion issues, bicycle and pedestrian issues, safety, climate change type of issues transportation may play into, any residential development type of transportation issues, economic development, things of that nature. So it's not just one roadway type of thing. It's everything that we'd like to incorporate into the plan.
Yeah, again, we want to encourage you to think. I'm sorry, right. So we want to encourage you to think beyond just the road network. Think about all the major modes of transportation in the community and what's most important to town. Is it walkability to the town center or the town hall in the various municipal buildings, or is it just recreational trails or even trails for commuting? Those might be something that the town is looking forward. Like you might prioritize it more than congestion issues. You may be willing to live with congestions, but you want to know but you might want to argue for trail improvements first. There was one just chat question I saw. We'll take input now, and if you have input later on, that's fine. I know it's kind of a lot to come up with some stuff right now, but if something pops in your mind, you just want to let us know, you can let us know now or later on. And again, through the survey or through emails or phone calls to us at the office. Yes, and there is another question on the surveys. The survey is open to all residents. It's not just town officials, but anybody and everybody. So that way we're encouraging, if you can tell us of a place that has a good turnout of people, such as the library or the senior center, we will make some copies and put some drop boxes in those places. Sorry, Brian.
So is there anything that comes to mind? What are some of the main challenges in your community?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Emily McCaffrey, and I'm here with Donna Howard. I'm the Community Services Coordinator here in Townsend, brand new position, so it's very exciting. And one of our colleagues, Beth, is also on this call. Here in Townsend, I think our biggest challenge is the lack of transportation. We have no buses, we don't have a MART system, there are no taxis, no cabs, no, Lyft and Uber don't really come out here very often. The only type of transportation we have is our Roadrunner through the senior center, which Donna runs.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
that's it, and that's very limited.
We've talked before with some people from Townsend, and I know Townsend is part of actually the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, and so I'm not sure how communities joined the transit authority at that point. We do have a close relationship with MART, and we can discuss with them issues such as transit options, and they're always willing to talk to communities, even though it's outside of their region right now. They can give you some ideas on various transit options that are out there and that they run. MART does run is the broker for a lot of paratransit and special needs transportation. They've also provide vans for senior centers and so forth. So there's a lot of information we can get from MART that may assist the community. So we'll put that down as a transit options for the town of Townsend as something to consider and trying to roll into some of our analysis.
And I would say a lot of towns similar to Townsend have the same issues, and just with transit options not even being on the radar, especially with an aging community, aging population, getting senior citizens to their appointments and just everyday daily needs. It's become an issue everywhere that's not in a city, to be honest with you. So it's very common type of issue.
Oh, we have a question from Bill.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm also from Townsend. We just finished our master plan, and certainly one of the issues is transportation. A big issue that I focus on is bicycle and pedestrian issues in town. I've been deeply involved with our new rail trail, which we have mostly built in town. And what I would really like to see in our town is improved quality of our streets for bicycle and pedestrian use.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems I have with your way of judging things, like from safety, you might look at accidents or things like that, which is not really the right metric, because what happens with a road that's not safe for bicycles is bicycles don't use it. And, I can't really prove that it's unsafe because of accidents. I can prove it because of it's unsafe because of lack of use. So I don't know how would we quantify a bicycle or pedestrian project to get it rating highly in the TIP process? That's my question. Thanks.
Okay. I guess there's a couple of approaches. Obviously, if you've identified, your main bike and pedestrian routes, Mass DOT is doing the Complete Streets program, which communities go through a process of identifying and prioritizing where they'd like to see complete streets and improvements done, and they can get funding for development of projects. But also, as you're promoting, whether it's an intersection reconstruction or road reconstruction, say Route 119 or Route 13, when those designs are being done, they have to incorporate complete streets into them, the design consultant. And they have to look at, can they put in bike lanes? Can they put in shared bike ways? Can they put in sidewalks and so forth? And that's a major part of all the design challenges that are out there for these projects. So by prioritizing where you're looking to improve a road or a system like that, and prioritizing it also as a complete streets project for the community, you may be able to bring those two funding programs together and tie them into expanding availability and access across the community. But in the general sense, if bicycle and pedestrian mobility and accessibility are important to the town, then it's important to note that when you are looking at projects, you can push for that. Your community has this priority for accessibility for bike and peds, and not necessarily roadway congestion. When we're getting down to individual projects, that's how we help us prioritize those individual projects. What does the community stand on it? What's the community's priority? And we can then address some of those issues at that point too. The accessibility issues you talk about for bikes and peds is a common one across the region. There are areas where people want to be able to bike. They don't feel safe biking. But if we look at a road project for that area, that may expand some of the right-of-way and be able to add in some of those amenities to make it a lot safer for people.
Oh, can I just ask one question? Are your projects limited to state roads, or do they also cover projects that are on town roads?
Right now, the RTP and the projects we are concerned about all include federal funding. If it's not eligible for federal funds, it doesn't have to necessarily appear in our RTP or our TIP. But so yeah, we're concerned about mostly those federal eligible roads at this point. But a lot of the projects or funding programs that are out there that the state runs, or the state has a jurisdiction over, may be eligible for state funds that are, they put together different programs that now might expand into a local road. So it's, for us, we have to keep our eyes on what Mass DOT is doing, what they're promoting. Also, the federal side, the bipartisan infrastructure law that was recently put together has a number of new funding programs, and it requires us to just keep an eye on them, read what's eligible, what's not eligible. So it can go beyond federal aid eligible roads and state owned roads. So it's going to depend on the funding program that's available. So it helps if the town can keep up on it, and we can keep up on it and let the town know what's out there.
And there are a number of locally owned roads that are eligible for federal aid as well. For example, in Townsend, Warren Road it's a federal aid eligible road. West Elm Street is, New Fitchburg Road. There's a number of local roads that are eligible for federal aid as well. And in terms of getting a project on the Transportation Improvement Program, or a project being eligible for funding through that program, we prioritize those projects based on a number of things. And one of those things is, say there's a proposed project on a road that does not have any sidewalks. And this proposed project is proposing to add sidewalks and bike lanes and what have you. We would actually award that project higher priority because it's adding in those elements where they previously weren't before. So that's sort of how those influences work with each other. So a project that's adding facilities to bikes and pedestrians that they didn't have before, it would actually influence it to get funded faster. Just to give you an idea how that may work.
Yeah, I'll expand on what Brian said just a little bit, get into the nitty gritty of a couple of things. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Transportation Improvement Program. That's a document we redo every year. It is a listing of federal aid eligible projects within the region, and it covers a 5-year time frame. The most up to the one that's out in place right now covers the federal fiscal year 2023 to 2027. And in those 5 years, we identify a number of projects that are in the pipeline, and we have to review each project and give it what we call an evaluation criteria score. We have a spreadsheet of the different criterias and different scoring mechanisms, and we score those projects to help us prioritize them. Now, in the beginning, when a project has just been announced by Mass DOT, there may not be a lot of information available on it. So, but we're looking at, so they'll be placed in the out years or the appendix of the TIP. And as more information comes in the projects, we keep rescoring and revisiting those criteria. And when we have those scores, basically what it comes down to is we get a listing of projects from A to B, scored highest to lowest. And theoretically, the way it's supposed to work, the highest scored project is prioritized for funding, and it should be in one of the federal fiscal years. There's other things that go into that. It's the design status of the project, where it, how soon is it going to be ready? Those kind of things play into it. But that helps. And as Brian said, when we look at the criteria, we look at evaluation criteria, we look at accessibility, sidewalks, bike usage, so on, and we give it a score, and that helps bump up its prioritization score. So it does work into play that way. In the overall scheme of things, when you talk about a project, a community such as Townsend can identify, say, the Route 13, 119 intersection as a project. And we can include it in our RTP as, say, a safety project or something. But a project has to be in the RTP, and typically it goes from the RTP to the tip and then construction. So it starts out broad and it narrows down to an actual project with design. One of the major problems for communities is it's nice to get a federal funding for a project because the feds pay 80%, the state pays 20%. But the state will come back usually and say, okay, your project's ready, it's been approved, you need to fund the design. And design typically runs 10 to 20% of the estimated cost of the project. So a $3 million project, you're looking at $300,000, $600,000 in design costs, well beyond the capability of a small town. You either have to pocket some of your Chapter 90 funds for a number of years to get that, go to a town meeting and appropriate those funds, or something along those lines. And it's very difficult for a small town because if you use your Chapter 90, you still have to do your local roads and you have to do maintenance and snow clearing and so forth. So it becomes very difficult. We encourage our communities now sort of to ask and to recommend that the state start picking up the cost for design. It is eligible under these programs. It's just that the state has made a decision that they're going to ask the communities to do it. They want the communities to buy into the project. Well, now it's getting a little bit beyond the ability of some of these communities to buy into a project. So that's one area we stress to our communities is talk to the state and see if we can get them to buy into funding the design, or at least sharing some of that cost, because it's good to get the federal funds in, but if you have to give up your Chapter 90 funds for 3 years, you're getting way behind. Sorry, that's my little spiel on the federal funding.
That's okay, Brad. Thank you so much. It sounds like you've really highlighted some of the positions that like Townsend would be in. It would be very hard for us to get that kind of buy-in. Do you guys offer, now that we recognize this as like a barrier, do you guys offer assistance with getting in contact with the state to be able to talk about some of these issues?
Sure, we're available. We have good relationship with Mass DOT, the district offices in Worcester and Northampton. We can help set up meetings with the district engineers and district personnel to talk about projects. In the past, they have been more than willing, to come out and meet with the community, talk about your needs, talk about what you are looking at doing, giving you some ideas as to possible stumbling blocks and what else might need to be addressed. So we can do that, and we can work with you to get that done. And I see we have a raised hand from Rebecca Merrill. Rebecca, do you have a question? Oh, Your raised hand went away. Are you available? Do you have microphone issues?
We can always circle back if need be for that.
Okay.
So one of the other questions we have is, so we do this plan every 4 years. We update it. It's required by the Federal Highway Administration every 4 years. Since we've done it, we've had a pandemic that's affected a number of different things. So, and I'm sure we're all aware of what it's done to the transportation factor and all this, but how has the pandemic affected your travel pattern? This is something we'll reflect on in the plan. Obviously, when we last did this in 2019, it would have never occurred to us that this would have something like this would have such a great effect. But this is something we'd like to document and explore in the plan as well. And it's something to think about moving forward if you want to provide some feedback.
Yeah, what we've seen in again, to sort of elaborate on it, what we've seen, is none of it we've seen is a reduction in travel, work travel, congestion during the peak hours. And we wonder, do you think that'll continue? Do you think, has it impacted your community positively or negatively? And do you think there may be changes in travel patterns for the businesses in your community or even the town hall and municipal offices? Will they go more to online participation and so forth? So just wanted to see how it was affected you and how it what you've noticed during the pandemic time frame, just so we can just give us a better idea of what's been going on.
And it's beyond transportation as well. It's for example, the telecommuting, the virtual workplaces become so much more prevalent. And as you look at housing values in the Boston area, and people figure they can just work from home anyway. So, why not extend your commute that you're going to take once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week out even further to broaden your options for housing? So that's certainly something that's going to affect the Montrousa region going forward. So all these things are things that we have to consider. And I think Rebecca got back to us.
Yep. Her question was, can we get engineering design for an RTP project through something like the Safe Streets grant? That depends on the program. Safe Streets, for all the new bipartisan infrastructure legislation, is a brand new program. So they're providing funding for planning grants, and I believe when they get to the construction, there may be some money available for design work too. But it'll depend on the program. But we'd have to see. We'd have to look at the particular project and see what it qualifies for and what it might be able to access in terms of funds. So that's an open-ended question. It would depend. But I'm talking mainly though about federal. When you develop a project, you've got an intersection. It needs to be improved. You know what you want to do. You submit it to Mass Highway through the process they have. The Mass Highways Board reviews it. They say, okay, yeah, looks like a good project. We'll fund it through a federal program, and your estimated cost is $3 million, and you have to work to get it into the TIP and so on and so forth. When they say, if you fund the design, there's no federal regulation that says you can't fund design with some of that federal funds. And that's what we want to do, is we want to get Mass DOT to loosen their purse strings and not just fund the project construction, but also contribute to the design. They do design for different projects depending on what they serve. And we just think it's about time that some of that be done for other communities and projects. So I don't know if I answered that question, but again, it depends upon the program and what their eligibility requirements are.
This being a long-range plan, this is a good opportunity where we update the RTP to suggest what needs to change or improve, big things or small things. Through the outreach sessions, it's good to get some feedback in that regards. So does anything need changing or improving in the network or the system or the way things are funded, or could anything work better?
Yeah, and this is where we'd like to know, for a town, what's your priority for improvement? Safety over congestion, transit options over bike trails, those kind of things, and something for the town to think about and sort of identify what is the most important needs for that community. And that helps us again when we get down to that prioritization of actual projects. And this one also ties in, I think, to the next question.
Right. Are there specific locations that pose an issue? Every community has a few. There are a number of projects in our region that are mitigating some issues that have been around for years, but there are plenty of issues, whether it be the infrastructure condition on a certain roadway or a troubled intersection. I know there are a lot of people from Townsend on the meeting today. I know that Route 13 and 119 intersection is always, we've studied it a few times over the years. There's a number of issues there. Are there any specific locations that come to mind that pose an issue?
What I want to say about this one is, as Brian mentioned, the town may want to do something for Route 13 and 119, but don't have a specific project ready to go, or they feel it needs to be some more studying being done. But you've identified it as a need. We can incorporate it into the RTP simply as saying it'll fall under the category of safety improvements to address high incident locations. So that's how we would roll it into the RTP. It doesn't need to be specifically defined as, well, we want to replace it with a roundabout and it's going to be 200 feet around and so on and so forth. If you've got an intersection that you think is a problem and needs addressing, let us know and we'll incorporate it into the RTP in some manner. We don't have to pick a actual solution to the problem at this point.
Yeah, I again.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought they said Bill. Yeah, so on 119, we certainly have an issue at the Harbor Village intersection, where a lot of us in town believe there should be a light and a easier pedestrian crossing. It affects our rail trail too, because you can go from the rail trail to the high school, but you need to go through that intersection. So I just wanted to point out that around Townsend, that's been a major intersection and a point of quite some accidents in the future. And I know the state has worked on it, but I don't know why we don't have a traffic light there. And I know they want to keep the traffic flowing through, but it's just never been. It's just a terrible intersection to get in and out of to the stores with that light.
Sorry, is this the intersection of, because when I think of Harbor Village, I'm thinking at the spot where there already is a light. Are you talking?
No, there is no light. There's a blinking light.
Okay, so the intersection of like Groton Road, 119, east of the high school?
It's directly across from the high school, where the shopping center is across from the high
Oh,
school.
right, okay. Where the shopping center is, okay.
Right, and it's very hard for people to get out of the shopping center. And I feel like the state is very resistant towards putting a light in there because they still have their focus as let's get as many cars through as possible and not emphasize safety and convenience of people. And it's been something that a lot of people agree on in town, is that let's try to get the people who are commuting get through that intersection and not worry about the people using the supermarket, either pedestrian or bicyclists or car traffic. So it's been one of the things I heard about on the master plan committee quite a bit. So
Thank you
that
for
was my
that,
comment.
because I don't think I don't think that had come up in past plans, but I could see how, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at that location. So I can see how that could certainly pose issues. And I know it's tough to get out onto 119 there, especially with the high school. There's a number of different safety issues and things like that.
Right.
So.
And they've done work there, but it's just like I don't know that they've made it better, but my daughter had an accident there. That's one place in town she's ever had an accident, and I'm sure there's other that's just stuff. Statistics there are accidents there, but it's just, and it's I think we also have a rail trail that's behind the rail trail goes behind the village center there, and it'd be a great way to the high school, but I don't think. Yes, they have the blinking lights there, but they go off so often. They're terribly designed. Whenever the wind blows, all those flashing lights go off, and so people are ignoring them. So I think it's just an intersection that could use some work. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful.
I just did get a chat message or a comment about small communities with low population being difficult to make mass transit financially feasible, which is true, and that's an issue that has to be looked at by the Transit Authority and by others. I know there's been talk about MART runs a lot of services and brokers a lot of services on the Dial-A-Ride program, paratransit, medical transit vans, and so forth. They will take people to doctor's appointments in Boston and Worcester and so forth. It's maybe bringing those options or expanding those type of options into the smaller communities is what's needed, because their elderly population still needs to get to the market, still needs to get to the doctor's appointment. So what can be done to address those issues? And I think that's something to highlight to all communities and highlight in the plan, that there needs to be some expansion of those kind of on-demand services that will assist elderly, disabled, and so forth. So we'll try and look at that. Next one, Brian.
So this is sort of one of the ultimate questions that this plan is trying to answer. What does a successful regional transportation network look like in 2050? It's a 25-year plan, and it's going to be called Journey to 2050. So that's really what we're trying to determine, what the needs are going to be and how can we plan for that. What does a transportation network look like 25 years in the future? Will it need more transit options as the aging population depends on that type of thing? Or, can we expect less traffic or more traffic, or what the trends may be? That's what we're trying to determine in this plan for. Another thing to note is a lot of these projects that come about, especially the larger ones, they start about 25 years ago. Believe it or not, a lot of them. Especially nowadays, it just takes a long time to get things funded. And whether it be just waiting for funding availability to pop up, or the design, or what have you, there are just a lot of issues in the way from identifying a problem and fixing it. So that's why this long range plan is very important. So this is really what we're looking to determine in this long range plan.
Just to depress everybody a little further, earlier we talked about this. The 2050 is the life line of the plan. We are closer to 2050 than we are to 1990. So it seems like a long way off when you say 2050, but it's really not. It's coming up fast. So, what's the town thinking about their transportation network? What do they like to see? Would like to see it more walkable, more less vehicle travel through the town center, or things like that. So, something to consider and something to think about.
So that is more or less all the questions that we had for this meeting. We always encourage feedback and certainly to fill out the survey. The survey has some different, more specific questions. We want to analyze the surveys that we get back and present that in the plan. That's going to influence on the type of things that we recommend. Certainly, if there's any feedback that you can think of, we're in the process of developing this plan. It's not going to be finalized until next summer. So here's the development schedule, and it's tentative. We're trying to keep up with it, but nonetheless, we plan on having an endorsed plan sometime in June or July of next year. Right now, we're really focusing on just the vision statement of the plan, the goals and objectives and performance measures. That's what we've been discussing with our joint transportation and MPO groups in the last few months, and that'll be ongoing. This is only the second of 5 scheduled public input meetings that we have. I know we talked internally about having more. We'd like to maybe give people more leeway before they commit to attending one of these meetings. So we'll be discussing that, maybe possibly sometime in the winter to have another session or two. We have 2 more tomorrow in subregions 3 and 4. We have one for Leominster, Fitchburg, and Gardner on Thursday, and then we have a transit oriented one in a few weeks at the MART facility. So those are just the ones on schedule now. And of course, we have the survey, which we plan on keeping open for the next 3 or 4 months or so. A lot of the analysis will take place in the coming months. We take a lot of information from the census. We look at, we have in-house crash reports that we do, infrastructure reports and that sort of thing. And we start writing the actual plan in the following months. And as I mentioned, we hope to have it endorsed by the MPO in either May, June, or July of 2023.
And as we mentioned before, we will be having RTP website or page, multiple pages on our current website. We'll be posting things there, such as the meetings we're having now. Some of the chapters, as they're in draft form, will be put up there for review. So keep checking that site for updates on the RTP. We'll try and get notices out to people when things are being updated. And as Brian mentioned, we will be having more workshops, and we'll try and pick a topic to focus in on each workshop. But the workshops we have going on right now, feel free. Anyone can attend any workshop they would wish. And you're not obligated to just go to Subregion 2's workshop. You can go to any of the other workshops too to hear what's going on and see maybe what other communities are talking about in their way. So again, we'll be posting this on our website, and we'll be following up with additional websites and try and clarify some of the things we're doing as part of the RTP and how we roll in your comments and suggestions and issues into that RTP. And finally, here's our contact information. Feel free to give us an email with anything, any questions or any issues that is of a concern. I want to thank you all for attending. And as we've said throughout, this is an ongoing process, so this is not a one and done opportunity. Keep it in mind, and as the things develop in your community and things come to your attention, feel free to pass them along to us, and we'll work to have a successful RTP put together that everybody has had input and a chance to take a look at. Thank you all. If there are no questions, we will see you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.